Imagine a conflict so controversial, it caused a generation to question their government. This was the Vietnam War, a war that spanned nearly 2 decades and claimed the lives of over 2 million people. As we delve into the labyrinth of history, we begin our journey in the year 1945. World War II had just come to a close, and the world was attempting to regain some semblance of normalcy. However, in the far reaches of Southeast Asia, a new conflict was brewing. Vietnam, under French colonial rule, was stirring with nationalist sentiment, a sentiment that would soon erupt into full-scale war. Ho Chi Minh, a fervent nationalist and communist, declared Vietnam's independence in September of 1945. The French, unwilling to relinquish their colonial hold, opposed Ho's declaration, leading to the eruption of the First Indochina War. For nearly 8 years, the Vietnamese fought a brutal war of attrition against the French, culminating in the decisive Battle of Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The Geneva Accords, signed in the same year, temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel. The north was to be governed by Ho's communist regime, while the south was under the leadership of the anti-communist Ngo Dinh Diem. However, this division was far from peaceful. By the late 1950s, the North had initiated a guerrilla war against the South, marking the beginning of the Vietnam War. The United States, fearing the spread of communism, began to increase its military aid to South Vietnam. By 1965, American troops were fully engaged in the conflict. However, the war was far from straightforward. The Viet Cong, communist forces in the South, used guerrilla warfare to devastating effect, making it difficult for American forces to gain any significant ground. As the war dragged on, anti-war sentiment began to swell within the United States. The Tet Offensive of 1968, a massive attack by North Vietnamese forces, further fueled public disillusionment. Despite significant military victories, the United States was unable to achieve a decisive victory. By the early 70s, the United States began to withdraw its forces, a process known as Vietnamization. The Paris Peace Accords, signed in 1973, officially ended US involvement in the war. However, the conflict was far from over. 2 years later, in 1975, Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese forces, marking the end of the Vietnam War. In the wake of the conflict, Vietnam was left in ruins. The war had taken a devastating toll on the country's infrastructure and population, scars that are still visible today. To summarize, the Vietnam War was a complex and controversial conflict that spanned nearly 2 decades. It began with Vietnam's struggle for independence from French colonial rule and escalated into a full-scale war with the involvement of the United States. Despite significant military victories, the United States was unable to achieve a decisive victory, leading to the eventual withdrawal of its forces. The war left a profound impact on both Vietnam and the United States, the effects of which are still felt today. As we close this chapter in history, we're reminded of the power of understanding our past, the decisions made, and the ripple effects that they can have on our present. The Vietnam War was not just a historical event, it was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity.